This is the No Swear Gamer from YouTube and the Atari 1700 Game by Game podcast, and you are listening to the podcasting pride of the Smoky Mountains, the Two Dudes in a Nest, with your hosts, Dude Michael and Dude Justin.
Hey, Justin.
What's up, man?
Not too much. Just realizing that every week I'm out of practice as far as performing our little intro.
Third time's a charm tonight.
Yeah, take 3 tonight. And,
right.
I really like to screw it up most often whenever we have a guest on, which we do tonight.
Right,
Welcome.
so it looks real professional.
Yeah, real professional. Thanks for coming on for this once-in-a-lifetime professional podcast. Matt Hughson.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Yeah,
thanks for coming.
We had you on, you made us look bad or made us feel bad whenever we covered Mighty Final Fight, I think. Because I believe it was
Final Fight.
Yeah, Justin and I both kind of liked it or something, or maybe we were liking it too much and you kind of brought us back down to earth, if I recall, something like that.
Yeah, I feel like the opposite. I feel like I was a bit of a downer that episode. Everyone was super happy and I was just dunking on it.
We evened out, so it works.
Yeah.
But this episode, we're going to talk about Adventures of Lolo, as well as Matt's new game, Witch and Whiz. And spoilers, I may have enjoyed Witch and Whiz a little too much. So if I slack off in the Lolo section, apologies. But
sounds good to me.
Yeah. So just right off the top, Matt, since we'll talk about your game in the second half of the episode, but if you don't care, before we get digging into Lolo, can you give us like a little elevator pitch for your game?
Yeah, sure. So Witch and Whiz is a 2D platformer puzzle game. It's based on a game called Catrap for a bunch of systems, but maybe most famously the Game Boy. So it's kind of like a spiritual successor to that if you've ever played it, but similar to kind of Boulder Dash, maybe even Dig Dug to an extent, but essentially 2D game. You're going left and right, up and down, up ladders, pushing blocks, stuff like that. Not unlike Lolo, actually. And your goal essentially is to kill all the enemies on the screen by jumping on them. And that's how you complete a puzzle. And obviously it's complicated by the fact that blocks get in your way and ladders are in the wrong spot, stuff like that. And then on top of that, every 10 levels or so, I introduce a new mechanic and throw out the old one. So for example, way through the game, you'll gain the ability to flip gravity. So then puzzles will happen on the ceiling and on the floor and back and forth. So it's kind of the general gist of it.
Yeah, that's good. You explained it well. It sounds almost like you made it. But so if that interests you, be sure to stick around for the second half of the episode, because we're going to talk about that game. But if you don't want to stick around and listen to it, you just want to go get it right now, based on that description, where can they get it, Matt?
Actually I should mention too, it's an NES game. It's an actual NES game. It was on limited run, but for the physical version, but that's over now. So the only way to get it now is on itch.io. So if you search for Witch and Whiz there, you can also play it for free on piepacker.com. If you go to witchandwiz.com, all the links are there. And that's witches and whiz as in like witches and wizards. And
in as in in, the letter N, not
I know.
And.
As I'm saying this, I'm realizing this is like a terrible way to name a game.
No, I like it. I think it's cool. I mean, if I'm going to put it, we almost put Two Dudes in an S, but then that got a little, that's kind of hard to pronounce. So,
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I got a tangent about that. So my main email that I use, that's not work email related. Well, even in my work email too, has the number 1 in it. And so I have to always say 1 as in the number. And it's just always but it's just aggravating. And it also comes, if I'm writing it down, it comes after the last letter in my last name. So if I'm writing it, it's, last name's Harrell. So it ends in 2 L's. And then I have to make a 1 after that. And how do I distinguish it? Because typically, you just draw one as just, straight line, but I also draw L. So I have to like draw the one as in like a numerical one, with the little flag on the top and the bottom so that you get it. But
well, that's super annoying.
This is like a George Costanza level complaint.
Yeah,
I know. I really need to change my email to like a 5 or something.
Just a number.
Somebody wasn't thinking.
Well, again, just a number because somebody's already got the one without the number.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
that's the problem. See,
it's probably that star football player that used to play for UT.
That's true. Although I don't think he has the same middle initial. No, mine has the middle initials.
Oh, okay. So there's another Justin M. Harrell out there somewhere. There
is.
Jerk.
Or it could be one of those situations where they think I'm going to be famous one day, so they bought that email. Right. And want me to buy it back from them. Like how people buy websites that like say, Steven Seagal, .com. Trying to get Steven Seagal to buy it.
Right. I think we just may have doxed you actually on the show. Hopefully not. But
it's fine.
That's okay.
It'd give me a reason to delete that email and restart, right?
Yeah, exactly. One of the email aliases that I have. Sorry that we're going off on this gigantic tangent
alert.
But one of the ones that I have, you would be proud of because my initials are MDK, right? My middle name is David, so if sometimes I can put an MD at the end, and it's like, oh, he's a doctor,
Nice.
They don't realize it's my initials. They just think he's a doctor.
That also sounds like a George Costanza conniving thing to do.
Okay, so we'll talk about Lolo, and then we'll talk about Witch and Wiz. Speaking of Witch and Wiz, one more thing. Matt was so kind as to give us a few extra codes. So stick around and listen. We're going to ask Matt what his game of the year was for 2021. And the first, I think, three, I can't remember if we got 3 or 5 codes, but the first, 3 to 5 people that reply to the episode post or send us an email or whatever, the first few people that do that will get a free copy of Witch and Wiz. So be sure to listen. It'll be somewhere in the middle of the podcast, but we'll make an announcement. I may do a tangent alert button or something so you can find it. All right, Justin, do you have any tidbits and or trivia for Adventures of Lolo?
Now it's time for Justin's historical tidbits and trivia. Time to get out your D-pad notepads because you're about to get schooled by the doctor.
All right. So, of course, since we have a guest, I have a quiz game to entertain everyone with.
Yes. I don't remember.
I don't know.
What's our record?
I don't know if we did it.
I got swept last time. It was
okay.
All right.
My main goal is just to get on the board tonight.
All right. I think you'll be able to do it. Now, I will say, just to remind, I'm sure, Matt, you remember the rules, but I'll just remind the listeners at home that want to play along. Maybe they want to play along. So I'm going to read a question. Each question has 4 multiple choice answers. When you feel like you know the answer to the question, you can buzz in by saying your name. If you buzz in before you hear all 4 answer choices, you do not get the rest of the answer choices. You have to answer from that point. And that's pretty much it.
Listeners out there, if you're playing along, you'll have to yell really loud and into the past. So turn around, do a 180 and yell really loud your name. And maybe Justin will hear you.
You know what we should do? We should have the listeners email us. And we'll put it in a big... You remember Bozo the Clown had the grand prize game?
Yeah.
They threw the little balls in the buckets to win prizes. Remember how they used to spin the little thing and they had envelopes in it as people that they were playing for home?
Oh, yeah.
They get the same prizes if, we'll do that. Except you won't win any prizes. You just be getting we'll just be playing for you at home.
Well, that's much worse.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's nothing like Bozo.
It's the same. It's the same, but worse.
We're below Bozo the Clown at this point.
Oh, no.
All right. So 5 questions. If this game ends in a tie, we'll go to a tie-breaking potato sack race to be performed at a later date.
Okay.
All right. First question. This game was developed by the company HAL. The symbol for this company is what animal incubating eggs? Is it A, an owl? Matt?
Dog.
It is a dog. Matt gets on the board right
wow.
off the bat. He doesn't even need the answer choices.
I actually did not know that.
So,
I actually
Yeah, so
wasn't totally sure because I thought it was a dog, but then you started talking about
Yeah.
incubating eggs.
I'm looking this up.
Weird.
yeah,
Oh,
well,
it's a weenie dog.
it's a wiener dog. It's like 3 or 4 eggs there. It was not the original symbol. It was created later. But yeah, so it's a dog laying on some eggs.
Yeah, the symbol I remember, like from the NES games, was like the word "howl." Like
It just says like how.
running
Yeah,
really.
it
It
just
looks
says
like it's
how.
running really fast or something. It's
Right.
got some streaks.
It's like
Right.
an IBM logo or something like
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
exactly. Okay.
All right, so this game features characters Lolo and Lala. But, and those 2 characters did make appearances in what other gaming series? Is it A, Mario, B, Kirby, C, SimCity, or D, Pokemon?
Mike,
Mike?
I'm going to take a stab and say Kirby because that's also a HAL game.
It was Kirby.
All right.
So they did feature in the Kirby games series as well as guests. All right,
Kinda look like-
so we
look like
got
little
tied up
Kirby's
at
too.
1-1. That's true. They're close. You can see the resemblance. Maybe they're related. So this game was a port of a series that was released in Japan. What was the name of that series? Is it A, The Misadventures of Layla, B, Eggerland, C, Garden of Eden, or D, Roundabout? Matt?
C.
C, Garden of Eden is incorrect. Mike?
I'm going to guess the yes hit roundabout.
It is not the Yes Hit Roundabout. So it goes back to Matt. We got
The Misadventures. Yeah.
it's not the Misadventures. So nobody gets this one.
Oh, shoot. It was Eggerland? What kind of a name? That's not even a name.
It's
That's not-
Eggerland. Yeah. But who kidnaps Lala in the game, right? I don't know if
that's
it's Lala
right.
or Layla. I think it's Lala. It's King Egger.
Okay.
So, you know.
That's fair.
Paying
That should have been a
attention.
gimme question then, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we're still tied 1-1. And this is a follow-up question to the last. And that is, the Eggerland series in Japan was originally released on what system? Is it A, Famicom, B, MSX, C, Sega Mega Drive, or D, Apple Computers?
Matt.
Matt?
MSX.
That is correct. It is MSX.
Oh, no.
And I know that wasn't a guess either. I could totally tell you knew that one right off the top. All right, so Matt is up 2-1. Mike's got to get the last one here to save his undisputed streak against Matt.
Okay.
All right, question 5. Why was Hal named Hal? Was it A, it was the name of one of the founder's grandfather? B, it stood for highly advanced logic. C, each letter is one letter above IBM.
Matt.
Or D, Matt?
IBM one.
Yep, that is correct.
Really?
It was named that because each letter was one letter above IBM.
That's
So,
interesting. We were just
there
talking
you
about
go.
how it looked like an IBM logo too. There's a bunch of
Yeah.
thieves. This HAL.
This changes everything.
all right, well, Matt wins.
Dang,
And
nice. Good job,
we don't
Matt.
know who you were playing for at home this week, but they didn't win anything. But the pride of knowing that they won. But anyway,
I think that since it's kind of like a slap in the face whenever you win for somebody, I think Nick Stevens won this week.
Yep, that's right. Nick Stevens, perennial winner of this game. All right.
Wait, I take that back. No, because that means he beat me. So forget that. It's not Nick Stevens. We'll give it to Gabe. Gabe, congratulations. You won.
So, Mike, do you have a story for how you came across the Adventures of Lolo?
Now it's time for the thrill of 8-bit discovery with Michael's quest to find the cart.
Yeah, so I've got a pretty interesting story about this one. I know my stories are always very interesting, but this one's extra special interesting. So, travel back in time to when I was younger, like dawn of time-ish. And I was, we were hanging out in the Garden of Eden. And then, like, this snake comes up to me. He's like, hey, don't worry about this garden. You can eat whatever you want. And if you go over to that tree, there's some NES games in it. So I was like, okay, cool. So I just kind of moseyed my way over to that tree, and lo and behold, Lolo was hanging from the tree, and I grabbed it, and it's been with me ever since. So you could say it was essentially the first NES game I ever got. Maybe the first ever NES game ever in existence. Cricket.
Fascinating.
We need a sound clip of somebody saying, like, worst story ever. Yeah, I could play that after every one. No, that was a dumb story. But the real story is, I think I actually picked this one up. Just this one was kind of pretty common. So I don't remember exactly, but I either got this one at the flea market back in the day, the Sweetwater Flea Market, or maybe at the closing of Pick-a-Flick or one of the rental stores when they started closing down, selling off some of their stuff. Yeah, I've had this. I've had Lolo for a long time because it was, like I said, it was pretty common, pretty cheap, especially back when I got it. It was like in the 50-cent bin.
Yeah, pretty common. It's also on the Switch, like NES library, which is how I actually played it the past few weeks that we've been preparing for this podcast.
Yeah,
I just played it on the Switch.
That's how I
library.
played it too. Even though I've got it, that's most of the time if it's in the Switch library or something like that. Even if I've got the cartridge, it's usually so much work to put the actual cartridge in. I know, guy on the NES podcast is too lazy to put the NES cart in his system and play it. But 9 times out of 10, I'll either play it on Switch, or if I have it, I'll just pop it in the retro buy and play it emulation style or something. Unless it's a fast Switch game or something.
I found the rewind feature too, like, really helped with this game for me. Because there's so many like micro mistakes you can make. Like, you just don't see something, you get killed, and you have to like do the whole lead up to that. It takes 10 minutes.
Right.
If you can just rewind 30 seconds, it's huge.
Yeah, that is a huge thing. That makes this game way better. And you know what? That's also a feature in Witch and Whiz. Sorry.
Yeah, there you go.
Promo for you. Anyways.
Sales
have just skyrocketed.
Yeah, but no, you're right. Yeah, we'll talk about that in the game discussion. But it's a puzzle game that you can easily make a mistake in. So that's true. Playing it on Switch, being able to rewind is pretty handy. Right. Anyways, did you guys have a copy of this? Did you get it anyway, Justin? I assume you're lazy like me, or you don't have a copy.
This is one that I do actually have a copy of.
Oh,
so I do have I don't have a story because I don't remember. It's just one that.
Did you pull this one out of the junk box? Because I remember either I put a copy in, or I remember somebody putting a copy in the junk box a few years ago.
I don't think so. I'm not gonna say I know for sure that it wasn't where I got it, but I think I may have got this from the. You remember the old shady video game store? So I think it's probably that's where I got this one.
Okay, cool. What about you, Matt? You got any stories how you acquired this game, or do you have it?
I don't actually own it. I was surprised. I thought I did. I own the third one. Yeah, I don't own this for whatever reason, but yeah, it's super common. I probably pick it up if I ever see it, but I'm not gonna. It's one of those games that like I can't really bring myself to like go on eBay or something and buy it. It's like you're gonna see it a million times.
Right. Exactly.
So,
and it's kind of it's kind of one of those games too. Like you said, you have the third one. If you have 2 or 3, spoilers for future episodes of the show, but they're kind of improved versions of the first one. It's kind of like the same game almost, but slightly better.
Yeah.
So there's really no point in having the first one unless you just run out of. If you get bored with 2 or 3, maybe.
Yeah, it's almost like an expansion pack for the later ones.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm game to start talking about the game if you guys are.
See what you did there.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that.
Time to dig into some good old-fashioned game discussion.
So, I don't want to waste too much time giving away copies of Witch and Whiz, Matt. Have you had time to think about what your game of the year for 2021 is?
Tangent alert.
I think so. I got a good one. One that I. Oh.
Sorry, I was trying to
I started talking.
There you go. Sorry.
Got a real low bar for that tangent.
I knew it was coming.
Just say the name of the game and move on.
No. I don't want. No, the entire thing is a tangent.
We've got things to do.
No, I was not trying to rush you. Please. I want some elaboration on it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a game called Anguna, Scourge of the Goblin King. Have you guys heard of that?
I don't think I have actually.
It's another homebrew game.
You may have to spell it for me.
Anguna. You search for Anguna, you'll find it. It's a really cool. It's kind of a Zelda-like for the NES, another homebrew game. But yeah, I just had a blast playing it with my kids. Came with poster map and.
Oh wait, I think I've heard about this one actually.
It had a pretty big Kickstarter. I don't know how long ago it was, but it just shipped a couple months ago, I think. I had a blast playing it. My kids, they had the map and the manual while I was kind of navigating around, and they were telling me where to go and stuff. Yeah, it was super fun.
That's cool.
So
that's cool.
That's probably the most memorable one of the year for me, or at least recently. So yeah, Anguna.
All right, cool. Listener, if you want a copy of Witch and Whiz, you just be one of the first few to send us a message in whatever way you want to. Preferably email or just comment on the post that we put up. Commenting on the post that we put up is probably the easiest one. That way we can have it all in one place. But yeah, just send us a message. Let us know. That also means, I guess, that if you're a Patreon donor, you get first dibs.
That's right.
That sort of thing. So that's a little added bonus for you guys. But yeah, cool. Anguna. I am curious, just to continue down the path of tangents. So your kids are helping you they have the manual and like some guides and stuff. How old are your kids?
My oldest is 7 and my youngest is 4.
Okay. I'm waiting on the day that I can, make my kids work for me.
So yeah, the best one we did something similar for Metroid, like Metroid NES, which, as you know, is pretty difficult game to kind of just do blindly. So we got a guide for that, and they were kind of reading through that and telling me where to go. And yeah, it was awesome. I think the next game I work on may be based on that idea, like a kind of asymmetrical co-op game.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like a teamwork kind of thing. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure yet, but yeah. How old's your kids?
Mine's 2, so that'll be a while for him. Just curious. I was just curious when he was.
Yeah.
Right now, all we do is he's a wild 2-year-old. He just basically runs and tackles me all the time, that sort of thing.
Nice.
It's fun too.
Throws trucks at me, whatever.
Not as fun.
Yeah.
You need to update the podcast listeners. Let's just keep the tangent thing going and update the podcast listeners on the potty training.
Oh, yeah, the potty training. It's going pretty smooth. He is he's pretty well trained now. He hates it.
Okay.
I mean, He absolutely hates it, but he knows he's not supposed to go anywhere but in the potty, right? So he'll go.
Yeah.
It's just he'll say, "Oh, pee pee," like, "Oh, I need to go pee pee," and we're like, "Okay, cool, let's go to the bathroom. We'll help you." And he goes, "No." Like, not that he doesn't want us to help him, but he just does not want to go. But he'll go. He's just frustrated the whole time, which is it's fine. It makes us frustrated too. But good news is he's pretty much potty trained. So there you go.
Oh, good.
Update. Listen, but that reminds me, Justin and Matt both. Don't let me forget. I got an update from Ryan and Robbie, that they forgot to include some stuff in last episode. Namely, like mentioning some things that probably got them in trouble with their wives. So they sent me they sent me a voicemail to play on the show. So don't let me forget. We'll play that here in a little bit. I don't want them to be in trouble. So
right.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about Adventures of Lolo. What I like to do, and what Justin likes to do to get started, is go to the manual. So, listener, if you have a copy, if you'll turn to page 3, we'll get started here. I'm going to skip the usual rigmarole of like, don't touch the terminals, don't blow on it, don't submerge it in water. We don't need to know all that stuff. We'll skip right.
We got it at this point.
Yeah, I'm going to skip right to the story. We're 170 episodes in now. I think we get that. You're not supposed to do those things.
Right.
All right. To save the country of Eden from the great devil's destruction, the king of Eden dispatched Princess Lala to seek help. Prince Lolo was requested to accompany Lala back to Eden. On the way back, the great devil kidnapped Lala right in front of Lolo. To save Eden and rescue Lala, Prince Lolo went to the devil's haunted castle. Lolo is not blessed with strength or agility, but possesses great courage, high IQ, and a lot of patience. Can Lolo save Lala after solving an almost endless series of mazes? I don't know. It's a good thing that's the story. That's it. I guess they're brother and sister. I didn't realize that. Should have.
Yeah, I thought they were lovers.
Yeah, I did too.
Maybe they could
awkward.
be. Maybe it still could be. It's kind of like, what was it? The Star Wars, the first Star Wars, the episode 4, where there's like that awkward moment where Luke and Layla kind of almost kiss, and then you find out later they're brother and sister.
Yeah, I think wasn't that like retroactive brother and sister? Because you didn't find that out until like the other movies.
It was, but still.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm with you. It's still a little awkward.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. So Lolo, he has no strength or agility, but he's got great courage and high IQ. It's a good thing that this guy didn't protect his castle with just like big, strong MMA fighters or something, right? Instead, he protects his castle with mazes. It's convenient.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway,
yeah, what are the chances? He probably thought he really outsmarted that king. Yeah.
All right. That's the manual's pretty much your standard fare, but it's good and detailed. It gives you some good info about the characters and power ups and environmental things like environmental hazards and how to get past them. It's a good manual to have with you when you're playing the game. Actually, it's not one of those 2-page manuals that doesn't tell you much information. I kind of like this manual. It's also not too long, so it's nice. But we don't need to spend a lot of time on the manual. But we'll keep it open so if we need to reference some of the characters or environmental things. But so you both have played the game in the past as well as today, I assume. You have any memories or thoughts of the game from when you were younger? Did you play it when you were younger?
I'm pretty sure I did play it when I'm younger. I remember it. I think I liked it, which would be quite abnormal for a young child to like a puzzle game, I think. But Yeah, it stuck with me enough that I remember. I don't remember loving it or anything. It was just one of those games I remember seeing here and there, and thinking it was pretty good. But it gets pretty challenging pretty quick for a child.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm kind of in the same.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I remember renting it from Pick-a-Flick more than once, which is unusual. I think I was just attracted to the style of the game, like as a kid, because it's the we'll talk about the graphics a little bit later, but the graphics are pretty good. It's got it's got a story that kind of catches you at the beginning. The gameplay early on is kind of interesting. So before it gets too difficult, not that it doesn't stay interesting, but from a child's perspective, right? It's it's different enough to where it was kind of it caught my attention several times. Like I thought, well, maybe I'll give it another shot.
Yeah. I did not play this game as a kid. And I remember when I went to pick this game up, actually, it was at the Shady video game store, because I remember I was talking to a classmate of mine in med school about the podcast, and they mentioned that this was their favorite game, and was wondering when we were going to cover this game. And I'm sure they've stopped listening to this podcast at this point.
We took too long.
Sorry. And I went and picked this game up shortly after at that store that was close to where I lived by. And I remember thinking, I guess I didn't really do much research on it. It was kind of like they told me about it. They didn't really tell me much about the game. And then I saw the box art and I was like, oh, it's for some reason I thought it was like a platformer, because from the box art, and then I put it in and it was like this puzzle game that is extremely frustrating. Like you said, Matt, pretty quickly. And it was like, what in the world? Whose favorite game was this as a kid? But yeah, so that was my first experience, was actually as an adult. It's actually a really fun game. But I can imagine that if I was a kid, this would be just extraordinarily frustrating.
Yeah, and as a kid, I don't know about you guys, but unless it was a game I bought and had to stew on for a long time, I didn't look at the manual. Oftentimes, rental stores didn't even give you the manual, right? So
right.
The manual would have really helped, because it kind of tells you some of the things that you can do and what you can do and how you're supposed to accomplish certain tasks. But yeah, if you just try to sit down and figure this game out without reading anything about it, like we would have done back in the day, it's pretty tricky just to figure out certain aspects of it. Like, what do the hearts do? What's this power gauge? When do I get the little fireball? When do I not? That sort of thing. It's it's kind of confusing.
Right. No, it definitely is.
Yeah. So I don't know. My thoughts though now, I mean, like you said, Justin, it's actually, I find it very, very entertaining. It's quite challenging. The levels do get pretty complicated pretty quick, and it moves at a fast pace too. Like you have to figure out how to do the puzzle, but then not only do you have to figure it out, you have to also execute it. And there's certain things that you have to do very quickly at times, or at least that's the only way I could figure out how to do it, was to just go at it and try to do it very quickly.
Yeah, it's you're almost guaranteed to not get it right the first time, and really even the first 5 times. Like, you really have to just kind of sit and stew on the puzzle for a while, and before you can really figure out kind of what to do.
Yeah, and it's got Michael mentioned, I think, it has some real-time elements to it where you can't always sit and stew. Like, you can before you actually start. As soon as you start moving, some of the enemies are chasing you down, blocking your exits. There's a lot of different layers to it that, yeah, keeps it quite challenging beyond kind of a standard puzzle game where you can kind of just look and plan ahead everything. You have to kind of try things out in real time.
Yeah,
keeps it really fresh.
Yeah, it's actually super unique and refreshing for the time too. Like I know nowadays we've got plenty of other games that have kind of milked this formula of like a top-down platformer puzzle game, right? But I can remember thinking that this was unlike anything else that I had played back in the day when I was playing it. And of course, it's partially because I had a narrow field of view, right? I had what was available at Pick-a-Flick and what was the other place in town? And we had the movie gallery, and then we had we had the cupboard, which I was never. Yeah. Oh, the trailer! I forgot about the trailer across the bridge. Yeah. Oh, I love that place. They had the best games.
Yeah. Yeah, they did.
Yeah. Okay. Never mind. I forgot about the trailer. Yeah. But anyways, obviously I had only a select few games that I could choose from back in the day. So it's partially that, and partially the fact that in 1989, not very many people were doing this kind of thing. So yeah, I thought it's super unique, and it's still kind of unique even today. There's not a ton of games, at least not in the popular opinion, that are like Lolo, right?
Yeah, and I think it does a couple things that you don't see in many games, like the real time mixed with the turn based, but also like every puzzle, you kind of touched on it, has 3 stages. There's the get all the hearts, which seems like kind of the core puzzle. Then you realize it's not just about getting all the hearts. You have to get all the hearts and then get to the treasure chest, which is a puzzle in itself, because you have to leave yourself a path, because certain enemies activate after you get all the hearts. Other enemies are active from the start. And then even then, once you get the treasure chest, it kind of seems like the puzzle's over, but there's an additional layer on top of that, which is you have to get to the exit. So depending on how you blocked enemies, you could have also blocked yourself from getting to the exit as well, even after all the enemies are gone, because the blocks stay as well. So that kind of multi-stage puzzle, yeah, there's not many that do that. There's a lot of puzzles that do kind of the Sokoban push blocks, like little twists on that. But that really, I didn't remember that aspect of it kind of so vividly until I played it again for the podcast. And yeah, it's quite unique and innovative, I think. I haven't seen a lot of games do that.
Yeah, and that same like 3-tiered system that you're talking about makes it so that gameplay wise, it stays like consistently fresh throughout the whole time you're playing it. Like every level feels, it doesn't look very different, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But at least the gameplay, the puzzle itself feels like super fresh and unique, like unlike all the other puzzles that you've done.
Yeah, there's tons of ideas, like just by mixing different enemy types completely changes things. And even there's like the grass ground where certain enemies can't walk on it. There's the sand ground. It's really like, it feels like a small collection of gameplay mechanics, but they just mix and match them through I don't know, it's probably maybe 100 levels or something. I felt start to finish, every puzzle felt unique. They were all kind of playing with different ideas. Oh, there's the rivers. You can push enemies onto the water and float on them. There's so many different ideas they mix and match that I felt like I almost felt like it was the perfect length for me. Like it was just nonstop interesting puzzles. And by the end, I was kind of ready to move on, but it hadn't overstayed its welcome. Yeah,
I agree. I feel the same way. I think it's like, I don't know how, it's been a long time since I played Lolo 2 or 3, because I don't think I own copies of those. But I feel like 1 is like the perfect length. Every single puzzle can remain fresh and unique and different from the other ones. And just about the time that you complete them is about the time that you're tired of trying to do these kinds of puzzles. And they get pretty difficult too. So it's like the frustration factor is definitely there on some of the levels. The difficulty curve, I would not say is linear. It's not like they just progressively get harder all the way to the end, but it is fairly consistent. Like it gets harder and harder as you go. They layer in more and more different types of enemies and stuff. So,
it's weird. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's intentional or it's just kind of depending on who plays it, but I certainly had cases where I would just be totally stumped on a puzzle, spend an hour on it, and then the next one I'd beat in 5 minutes or just seemed so obvious to me. But I don't know if it was actually easier or I was just in the right mindset that I kind of instantly saw the solution.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I think the way that these puzzles are structured with like pushing blocks and, the various things that you do, I think the way that they're structured means that like different people could find different levels easier than others, It's like you may think this level's super easy, but I may spend an hour and a half trying to figure it out. So I think it's pretty cool. You touched on it earlier. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, you touched on it earlier, using the rewind feature on the Switch, right? And so that's what I did this time. And I wonder if my opinion of the game is colored by that, because I found this game very enjoyable and I loved every minute of it. But I used that rewind feature like a crutch pretty bad. Which really enhanced my enjoyment. Yeah, it really enhanced my enjoyment of the game. But I wonder, I have feelings in the past of thinking it was kind of like an okay game, as a unique game, but that it was just okay. And I was like, if I was going to give it a rating out of 10, it'd be like a 7, right? That's kind of my opinion thinking about it before we started playing it for the podcast. And then this time I played it on Switch, and spoilers, my thoughts are much higher. I'm holding it in a much higher regard, and I'm wondering if a lot of that, unfortunately, may be tied to the fact that I'm playing it on Switch and I have that rewind function,
Yeah, it's kind of a weird one too. It's because it's completely, it's not like a platformer, I feel like, where the skill, like you're kind of cheating by rewinding. Like in this, rewinding is literally just saving you time because you know exactly how to get back to where you were.
Right.
It's not a skill thing. It's just a time thing. So it feels legit to me to play it like that. But yeah, if you're trying to review it as an NES game, I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough.
It was, and it's weird too. It does. I don't even know if you saw this, but when you die, like it has lives. They just send you back to the main menu, and then you go and you just like click through the menu, and you go right back to the level you were on. It's not even like it sends you back to the start of the floor you were on. Like they go through.
It's just like a time limiter, right?
Yeah, it literally has no impact on anything. I was like, well, this is dumb. So I'm just going to start using rewind if I die or save states at the start of every level because I don't want to spend... It's only like 30 seconds, but it feels like forever.
It feels like forever when you're super frustrated because you were this close to getting to that exit, right? And it was your last life. And then you have to go through all that again, just go start over again. Yeah.
Those Medusa heads, man, they're like...
Yeah, those ones, ridiculous.
The instant kill ones, they just totally blend in. They look like trees.
What is up with them? What is up with the Medusas in NES games being so frustrating? I don't get it.
Yeah, I was just playing Castlevania. Actually, they're the worst.
The talking about having to redo the puzzle, you can like kill yourself and start over, right? In this game, if you want to. I guess you have to block yourself in.
Yeah.
But the big thing for me, and the reason why I found myself leaning on that rewind is, I could start the level over, but some of these puzzles are so intricate. It may have been a 10-minute ordeal for me to get through to get to that point where I'm dying, right? And it's like, oh my gosh. And I die there 2 or 3 times. So it's like 30 minutes of me doing the same thing over and again, trying to get to this point in the puzzle. And it's just,
Yeah, and some of them have, like, you have to wait for an enemy to kind of loop through a pattern and be in a certain spot. Yeah, it's not fun, that part of it.
Yeah.
Some other stuff in it I wasn't crazy about either. I really don't like how the shots that you earn from collecting certain hearts are just totally hidden from you. Even in the manual, I was just reading it as you were talking about it. It just says, like, there's no way to know what hearts will give you bullets. I'm like, that seems like a weird design choice to me. Like, why is that interesting to kind of randomly pick up hearts until you learn which ones have the bullets or if you're going to get bullets at all? Because that forces you at the start of the puzzle, you can't really plan it out properly because you don't know what tools you're going to have until you explore a little. Maybe that's interesting, I guess. You have to explore a little to kind of really understand what's at play in the puzzle.
Yeah, that kind of goes along with what Justin was saying, that most of the time you're not going to figure out the puzzle on your first try because you may have to figure out which one of those hearts gets you that power up. in order to figure out the puzzle. And so you may have already wasted your chance of completing the puzzle before you know what I mean? Before you even get the shot.
Right.
Yeah. Even after finishing it, I'm not even sure I totally understand it. If it's particular hearts give you the shots, or if it's like the second heart you pick up, regardless of which one it is.
Okay.
Give you the heart.
I'm really glad you said that, because I was waiting on somebody to admit that they still have no clue how it works, and because I don't.
Yeah. I don't think there's any pattern. I just kind of randomly thought, oh, I got one there. But
I couldn't figure out if it was like once you get 2 of them or once you get 3 of them, but then some levels you never get it, and then some levels, it feels like it's a certain heart that you get. Okay, good. All right. I don't feel stupid now.
It's definitely level definitely level specific.
You mentioned the lives things and how there was like really no impact. You could just go right back to where you're the same level. I think we talk about how frustrating this game is now. Imagine how frustrating this game is if you really did have to restart it after you lost all your lives. Then that would make it extraordinarily.
Oh yeah, that would definitely knock this game down a peg or two, probably.
Yeah, I played probably the first half of it like that, like kind of legit, and then once I got to the later levels, I started rewinding. Because some of the setups, like Michael was saying, were just so intricate. I couldn't bring myself to do it again.
Yeah.
Something else. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I thought something else that's pretty interesting with this, which is how it does like half tile movement. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Where you don't move in a full block, you move half a block at a time.
Oh, yeah.
And then at first I was like, this is so weird. This just is annoying because I'm kind of pushing halfway across a block and getting hit and stuff like that. But then I think there's only like 3 or 4 puzzles that actually require the half block movement, where you can use a single block to, sorry, I'm using the word block over and over again, a single block tile to prevent multiple enemies from shooting you. And that was
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen that.
I did notice that. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's used very, very sparingly, to the point where I kind of forgot it existed, and that got me pretty stumped for a while, and then suddenly you realize, I can block both of those guys with one block.
And that's another thing that kind of keeps the game kind of fresh, is there's that, and then there's a couple other things where they're just used so sparingly throughout the game that when they pop up, it's like, oh yeah, this again. This is cool. I forgot about this.
Yeah, like those enemies that just follow you. They're like giant blocks or something. I don't know what they kind of look like Mario enemies. Rocky, they're called in the manual. But they just like hone in on you and push you against the wall.
Oh yeah, the ones that just pin you in. Yeah,
and they're only in there like a handful of times in the whole games. Yeah, like, just like you were saying.
Some of the floor types too are kind of not in there very frequently. So yeah, I think that's just some of the things. Those you're a game designer. You could answer this, but it seems like those are like design decisions that really help keep the game like super fresh. Like it probably took a lot of work for them to come up with this concept for this other puzzle element. If I was designing a game, I'd think, that's a really neat idea for this puzzle. Like these guys that block you in, they don't actually hurt you; they just push you up against the wall. And then I would think, I want to use this in every level. But then no, they had a lot of restraint where they were like, no, that's a cool idea, but it would be even cooler if only 8 of the levels out of the 50 use it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering if maybe it seems like a lot of the real-time elements, like those guys, the guys that fall asleep when they touch you, I wonder if, like, I'm guessing a lot of the puzzle design was done on paper. So it's a lot harder probably to design those real-time enemies or puzzles that use those real-time enemies. So maybe that's just why they don't show up as much. But yeah, I agree though. It appears to be a game that shows a lot of restraint. I agree. It's quite nice to play because of it.
And wonder, it just makes you wonder, considering it's on the NES and such an old piece of hardware, if it was truly a design decision with restraint, or if it was something to do with limitation. Like they wanted to do all these different ideas, and they couldn't, obviously they couldn't cram them all into one level. So they just had to sprinkle them throughout the game, just because the NES wouldn't let them cram it all into one or something.
Yeah, that seems likely as well. Color palette limits, number of sprites, stuff like that come into play for sure.
Yeah. Cool. So speaking of color palette and sprites, what y'all think about the graphics in this game?
I think for a puzzle game, for a game like this, that's, very 2D and very, can become repetitive just out of, a lot of these games are. I thought this was very good. I thought, for a puzzle game, this had a lot of good graphics, a lot of different level designs that I thought were good. So I was very impressed.
Yeah, I don't know. I was initially very impressed with the game when I turned it on. I thought, yeah, it looks great. The Lolo's, he's just a little blue ball, but he's just so endearing somehow, right? And then,
yeah.
I don't know if it's it's probably the big eyes, but yeah, and this is the cool cutscene at the beginning and stuff. But then I don't know, as I got further and further in the game, I get it. You're in a castle, right? And you're trying to make it through this castle, but man, this castle needs an interior designer or something, because it is the same bland brown floor and walls the entire time.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
I felt
it's a puzzle
very
game.
similar. Yeah.
It's a puzzle game, so I mean, I got to give it a little bit of forgiveness. I mean, Tetris is the same thing over and over again, right? And it's one of the best games of all time. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I thought it, functionally, I thought it does a really, really good job of making each enemy distinct and memorable. So you're not kind of guessing what is that guy going to do again in this puzzle? How do I feed it? It's really obvious. The pink dinosaur things shoot once you wake them up. The slug guys just stand there and do nothing. So I really like that. I really liked Lolo's walking animation. That's
the animation. The animation is really good.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, animations in general are pretty good. They're kind of basic for the other guys, but they're pretty good. Like the sleeping guy, it's awesome. Yeah, but the biggest obvious kind of negative point is just how repetitive it gets by the end. You really kind of are expecting a biome change. That's at each floor almost. I was expecting, okay, I'm in floor 2 now. I'll get the water levels and then the lava levels, and it wasn't like that at all. It's the castle levels forever.
Yeah, castle levels for days.
Heard you like castles. But yeah, what's there is really good, but it's hard to. I'm trying to remember what the sequels were like. I feel like they were also super repetitive.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I'm not as sure about that. I have to go back and look. But yeah, I feel like some of the stuff also looks weird. Like I don't know how to describe him, but there's one guy who kind of goes back and forth and shoots arrows. If you get in his line of sight, he's kind of like the Medusa. He looks almost like a children's drawing. I don't know how to describe it. It looks totally random. Whereas other stuff, like Lolo and the slugs and stuff, have a lot of character. So I don't know if it's different artists or what's going on there, but a little mixed bag on some of the character design stuff. But overall, I thought it's pretty endearing, pretty memorable.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I think there's definitely some weird there's some weird ones that pop up, but in general, the level itself is very boring and very bland, and it gets very old. But all the enemies, most of the enemies in Lolo, and a lot of the animations, and that's where it really shines. Is the characters in the game, and the way they're able to make each one. Most every single enemy looks distinct, and like you said, it really what they do because they look. You can remember what each one enemy does because they look so distinct from the other ones. You're not sitting there wondering, I don't remember what this guy did because he looks just like this. There's not 4 different slugs that are just each different colors, right?
Yeah, exactly. A red slug and a green slug or something like that.
Because then you
reminds
forget
me a
what
lot
they do, right?
Yeah. Which is a huge part of the game, right? Is it's very mechanical. You want that kind of instant recognition, I think. It reminds me a lot of Bubble Bobble, I find. Everything's got cutesy eyes. Not everything, but a lot of stuff does. It's not super detailed characters, but they're kind of endearing at the same time.
Yeah, I could see that. All right. Well, as long as we're going to talk negative things, what do you guys think about the music?
Well, there was, a song.
Yeah, there was music. It was there. It was present. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, it was one song for the entire game, right?
As far as I could tell, it was definitely just one song repeated over and over and over again.
I'm trying to remember what it was, but I don't know. I don't think any one song can last an entire game and be enjoyable.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm sure I muted it very early on.
Yeah, I played it on mute most of the time. So maybe later in the game it changes, because by the time I got later in the game, I had to turn the music off, but I doubt it. I'm pretty sure it's just the one song the whole time. And the problem is, you're right. Probably there's no one song that could be played the entire time and be enjoyable. But I feel like there's other games that do a better job with one song. Like maybe they have it come in and out or something. Like it's only in certain parts of the game, and then the other parts it's just quiet, which I would have been fine with. Just have some little enemy noises and stuff, and then play music here and there.
I think for a game, I don't want to kind of toot my own horn here, but this definitely came up with Witch and Whiz, which is people have to sit on a screen and stare at it for 30 minutes. The approach we took was to push the music to the background and make it super subtle and not like a catchy jingle, which is what Lolo is. It's like something you would hum, but it's just you don't want to hum it for 3 hours.
Right.
So I think they could have just taken a bit of a backseat on the music and just like a little bass note beat, like something just to kind of fill the void, but not something that you're expected to enjoy specifically.
Right. Oh well. Can't win them all, Lolo. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know. I don't really have a whole lot more to say about the game, I don't think.
I think you covered it fairly well.
Yeah. So, I guess my only other question is, Justin, how much does this game go for? Can we say it's worth it?
So, pricecharting.com has the loose price at $10.95, so $11.
Oh, wow. I'm going to say it's definitely worth that, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I think this is a common game. I think it's, why it's kind of on the cheaper level, and I think definitely worth it. Does it we've talked about doing this in the past, sporadically do it. Does it replace any of your games in our selections? Remember how we do the selections for the money?
I don't remember what's on my collection, but...
Yeah, if I've only got a limited amount of money, I don't know. I don't know if this makes it, but I think
it would be
definitely
tough.
Worth it.
Yeah, it would be tough. I'd have to see. What's on my list and see if there's any other puzzle platformers on there. I really do like this game. I think. I think it's a game that's approachable. I think it's a game that is difficult, but not staggeringly so that you just can't do it. And I think it's about the right length. I think you could play through this game in a weekend or something, and then maybe put it down and come back to it a year or two later and have just as much fun with it. So I don't know. I really like it. I think $10 to $12 is totally worth it. We'll see. We'll revisit when we get to episode 200. We'll see if it makes the list. But it's definitely close to being on my list. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have your list, but as far as puzzle games on the NES, I think I definitely have a Lolo game in there. The one thing I'm not sure about is if it would be this or one of the sequels.
Yeah, probably end up
pick
being one of
one.
the sequels.
Yeah, and
But,
I don't know what the price difference is either between them, so it's hard to say. But I'm trying to think of any puzzle games on the NES that I like more than this. Like similar, not like Tetris and stuff like that, but these kind of like single screen puzzle games. I don't know. There's none that come to mind really. Probably think of something later, but yeah, this is up there for me for sure.
Just FYI, Lolo 2 goes for around $40, and Lolo 3 goes for around $60 right now, as of this recording. So yeah, if you're gonna, I'm definitely picking Lolo 1 to be in my bucket. If I only have about $200 to spend on games or something, of the three, Lolo 1's definitely making it in there. Because I don't think we'll maybe talk about them when and if we ever cover Lolo 2 and 3. But I don't think they're as much of an upgrade, or they're not that much worthy of an upgrade for that kind of jump in price.
Yeah, I just remember the third one added a world map, and it kind of drove me nuts. You have to walk between puzzles now.
Yeah.
You can go into them in any order and stuff, and I don't like that. Too much choice.
It seems like a waste of time.
Turn into an RPG. Yeah, exactly. They're like, we didn't waste enough of your time with those retries and sending you back to the main menu.
Yeah.
And we're going to make you walk between levels.
All right. So I did not, I don't think I posted, I was looking on our Facebook group. I don't think I posted for feedback on this because
I didn't see any.
We kind of had to mix it up with trying to get Matt on. We were actually trying to get it on before the physical release window closed, but Justin and I both had to do some rescheduling. I don't have any Facebook feedback. I didn't come up with any retrofitted achievements for this one either. Slacker. Telling you, I spent too much time. I spent too much time on Witch and Whiz, people. I didn't get enough time to do retrofit achievements. But do you guys have any?
Not me.
Yeah.
No, let's we can go ahead and move on.
You want to move on?
Talk about Witch and Whiz.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. All right. So I'm going to put a little transition music in here. And by transition music, I mean some more of that intro music that I played that was not actually the game. But I may go back and put in a song from Witch and Whiz here instead for transition music. So what Justin and Matt are hearing is probably not what you, the listener, are hearing. But here we go. All right. Did that switch your brain over to thinking about Witch and Whiz?
I did. Immediately.
All right, cool. So, Matt, you got a new game. And I must say, just right out the gate, I don't know what I was expecting. I remember, last time you came on, you were talking about From Below, right? Which was kind of like a Tetris clone, right?
Yeah,
of sorts. And so I don't know exactly what I was expecting, but when I popped this one in and started playing it, I was pleasantly blown away. I was like, "Whoa, this is definitely an upgrade in my book from Below."
Thank you, and I'm a little bit insulted at the same time.
That's what I'm good at. That's kind of like my forte, throwing in a little insult at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that.
But no, this has a little story. We'll talk more about it here in just a second as far as the story and stuff goes. But it's got a little story at the beginning, and then you get right into just some really clever puzzle platforming. But so you were nice enough to send Justin and I a couple copies, and I guess I didn't. I should have known because. You did the same thing with From Below, but I just popped this into the emulator and I played it on my RetroPie just like I would any other NES game. And so it's just sitting there right alongside my other NES game. So I was able to play this game and then, hop over and play some other similar game, Fire and Ice or something, just to compare your game to the other game, not to compare it to try
Yeah,
to not to try to. I mean, they're obviously decades apart, right? But it's the same hardware, so there's some more developer knowledge that's come along the way. But in general, you're working under the same limitations as they were, and so yeah, there's lots of cool stuff to talk about. Anyways, I'm rambling a little bit. So, what I'd like to know is what to kind of start us off. Where'd you get the idea, and what's good? We'll do a little history. We'll do tidbits and trivia here without the trivia. So, what's kind of inspired you, and what was your path, maybe from the previous NES game to this one?
Yeah, first of all, that Fire and Ice is a good point. I'd put Fire and Ice before Lolo when we were talking about puzzle games. That's a fantastic game. That's one of the inspirations for Witch and Wiz. That one's obviously less direct, but the style of it, the way they take such like a seemingly simple mechanic on the surface and really kind of roll with it and see how much they can do with it, I find that quite inspiring.
I was not necessarily putting that one above your game, by the way. It just made me think to go.
I think I would.
It just made me think to go try Fire and Ice.
Yeah. No, I find it interesting too. Like, there's a weird. You mentioned it there, where eventually they are all on the same hardware, so the kind of end result physical limitations are the same to an extent, but there's a lot of other pieces involved. For example, the cost of memory. I can essentially put like a 1 gigabyte card on the, like SD card on the cart if I really wanted to, right? Whereas that would be impossible. Yeah. And they would have to think about every kind of kilobyte that they're using when they're making their games back in the day, whereas now I kind of just do whatever I want, and when I need more memory, I add more memory. And we kind of, people who make NES games tend to, I think, make personal kind of limitations that they want to stick to a certain extent. But
yeah, I was going to ask you, did you limit yourself then in that case? Because I noticed it's a 256 kilobyte, right? Yours is?
Yeah, which would be pretty big.
Yeah,
but not unheard of. Like Kirby, I think, is 512 or something like that. One of the bigger ones. Super Mario, it's probably similar to Super Mario 3, although I haven't checked it. So it'd be like of kind of the upper level of size of licensed era NES games, but not like some of the homebrew that come out now that are literally like Doom running on an NES, stuff like that. So I think it's a legitimate game that could have come out back then. But then the other side of it is just the development tool. So I can run a game in an emulator and I can debug it live. I can write it in C. There's a whole bunch of advantages I get by being in the modern era. Even if the end result still has to compile to an NES, there's a lot of tooling along the way that I get that they didn't have, or that they had to write themselves. Like I think a lot of people were writing their own assemblers and stuff like that back in the day. But at the same time, I'm working on it in my spare time. Just me. Well, I work with artists and stuff as well, but programming and design is just me, and it's a couple hours a night, whatever I can find, that kind of thing. So I think it evens out in some ways.
It does.
But I think it's really interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to jump in real quick, talking about file size, and since Lolo was the beginning of this episode, Lolo is 36 kilobytes. So
really? Oh, that's smaller than I expected.
Yes, it's pretty small. Lolo's pretty small. Lolo 3 is 128, so Lolo 3 is pretty big. But Lolo 1's 36. Pretty small.
Yeah, and actually a big part of Witch and Wiz memory-wise is just the music. There's like 16 tracks or something like that, which I think would be pretty well, maybe there's games that do that, but that would be a little excessive, I think, for licensed era standards. I probably would have cut that in half if I actually wanted to kind of save money on.
Yeah, that's quite a few. And you got some pretty intensive graphics like in this game too. So I'm sure a lot of memory goes to some of that too.
Definitely, yeah. So like one thing I wanted was every time there's a new mechanic introduced, there'd be new visuals that kind of go along with it that are somewhat parallel to it. For example, there's a section of the game where you have a clone. So that is all themed around mirrors. So switch everything out to mirrors, stuff like that. And so levels where the game flips over on a gear. And so that's like meant to be a clock clock tower theme. So yeah, for sure. There's things that I think like if it was back in the day, would have cut corners and simplified a bit, but since we got lots of memory, yeah, a lot of it, memory code, all adds up. There isn't really one silver bullet that's eaten up all that memory. And actually, there is memory left over, even though it says it's 256K. I didn't actually use it all in the end.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
So anyways,
awesome.
so you were saying your path from the previous game to this one.
Yeah, so Witch and Whiz actually started in 2017. I'm not sure if you're aware of Pico 8. It's a fantasy console or PC. Yeah, it's kind of like an NES, but not really an NES. It's like a fake retro system that you can make games for in a much more forgiving environment. So Witch and Whiz I made with a guy back in 2017, and it was basically 30 levels that were just three mechanics. It had the kind of basic levels with a clone where you're controlling two at the exact same time, and then the Witch and Whiz levels, which were where you go back and forth between two characters. So that was that's where it started. So I built that I guess about 4 years ago now. And then earlier this year in 2021, I kind of rebuilt that Pico 8 version for the NES for a competition called the NESdev competition, which is a yearly thing where different people in the NES homebrew scene submit somewhat smaller games usually, or kind of proof of concepts, demos, and there's a competition for the best game. So Witch and Whiz was entered into that. It got second place. And that was, more or less the Pico 8 version, but running on an NES. So much simpler, only one tile set, just 3 songs, I think, including like the title track and stuff like that.
You got robbed.
No, the game that won definitely deserved it. It was awesome. So after that was in, I think, March of 2021, I switched gears back to doing the full version of this game, which sought to add, as I mentioned, new tile sets for every level, new music tracks for every mechanic, new music tracks for every mechanic, and then adding from those initial 3 puzzle mechanics, initially I wanted to add 7 more. I think in the end I added 4 or 5, you could say. And then I also added kind of the prologue levels, which you mentioned, which are a bit of a story introduction to the story. That's kind of, and then I basically finished it this summer, did a bunch of beta testing, and then started working towards the physical release, which was in like November 12th to December 12th of this year. Pretty limited run, so a lot of run up to that, getting things ready, box art, manual, all that kind of stuff. And then it launched digital at the same time. So that's how I got here. And as you mentioned, it's my second NES game. So I had always planned that my first game would be something really simple, like Tetris, which is what From Below's obviously inspired by. And my second game would be a bit more advanced, use like an advanced mapper, additional memory, more graphics, stuff like that. A little bit more action-oriented, but still somewhat simple. Like you can see, everything's a single screen. There's no scrolling. There's not a lot of real-time action. I can kind of keep things simple that way. And then hopefully my next game will be something more along the lines of like an action platformer, something like that is what I want to do.
You're talking Justin's language now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of where I'd like to be. Those are the kind of games I made prior to working on the NES, but there's a lot of skills to kind of relearn on the old hardware. So I'm kind of building up to that, but hopefully getting close.
Yeah. I mean, if you take the same, I don't know if this was just this game came easy to you or not, but if you take the same level of care that you put into this game, I think you'll figure it out for sure. I am curious. Absolutely. So you definitely ended up with a bunch. How many different elements did you say? Because I haven't seen them all yet. But
I think there's like 7 core mechanics, you could say, that kind of switch up throughout the levels.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, your puzzles get pretty intricate, and they're not exactly easy. So I've only made it through maybe, I don't know. Let's see. I'm trying to think. I'm probably about 3 mechanics in, I guess. I did the one where you can go through the walls. I made it to, that's like the second one, right? I did the second one, and I did the I think I'm at the gravity one now, where you flip upside down.
Yeah.
It's like, but I haven't made it much past that yet. And
Okay,
it's not for lack of trying, I must say.
It's hard though. Like some people they play it for the first time and they can finish it in 45 minutes to an hour, and other people can spend that on one puzzle. So it's really hard to find that sweet spot where it's fun but not frustrating and rewarding but not too easy.
So I guess what I'm most curious about then is how did you design these? Did you go pen and paper and design them before you got into the game? Did you design them with because you did this dev release first, did you have any help from like the community to help you design some of this stuff, or?
No, I tried to get some people to kind of hop on, and I released a level editor privately to some of the beta testers to hopefully get some additional support, because I actually hate level design. So, but I didn't get nobody kind of hopped on that. So yeah, they're all the new ones are for me. Some of them are from that original Pico 8 game, which are a mix of me and the designer or the artist on that game. But yeah, the way I approached it was I would think of a new mechanic, say the gravity flipping, and then on pen and paper, I would try to design a really easy puzzle, a medium difficulty puzzle, and a really hard puzzle just on paper, and see if I could do that. And that's how I would evaluate if a mechanic itself was good enough to go in the game, or was kind of feasible to go in the game. Because if I can't design a really difficult puzzle, even one from the start, it's just kind of a non-starter. There's no way I'll be able to design 10 puzzles if it's kind of that hard right from the start. So there's a lot of mechanics that kind of just ended there. So the ones that I kept, like the gravity one, I would mostly, the way I do a lot of the puzzles is I would start with a concept, like on this puzzle, I want you to have to hang on to a ladder while you flip gravity. And then while everything else flies up to the ceiling, you're kind of stuck on the floor holding onto this ladder. And you use that to your advantage to kind of reach a new area. And I would kind of start with something really simple like that, build that. And then assuming it worked, if I wanted it to be more difficult, I would just layer on additional kind of gotchas in there. So like maybe there's a cobweb that you needed to destroy first before grabbing onto the ladder so that you don't get stuck, something like that. And I just keep going and going until it got to the level of difficulty that I thought warranted or matched where it should be in the progression of the game. That's kind of, yeah, I did most of the level design on the computer. I have a pretty good level editor, so I can implement and test the level in kind of seconds. It's really easy to test ideas once the mechanics are in place.
Nice. Cool. So so what so something that is a little aside, something I really like that you did in the game. It's so silly that I like this so much, but you put what the B button and the A button do down in the corner all the time. So it's like, because the A button changes what it does throughout the game, right? In different parts.
Yeah, correct.
And so the B button's always that rewind feature, which I do want to ask you about that here in just a second. But the fact that the A button, because when the mechanic changes, that A button kind of changes too. So it's like, it's probably not that difficult to remember what it does, sure. But it's a nice little touch. You just got the little floating buttons that remind you what's going on, you know? So I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things you're talking about at the start where there's like 35 years of design like knowledge between this game and, say, Fire and Ice. So that's one of those things. I'm just used to that from modern game design where you put button hints on the screen all the time to tell people what to do, even if it's maybe obvious. There'll be times where people will forget, and it's just nice to have there. So yeah, it's just one of those things. I actually really regret that I wasn't able to get the select resets the level, and tons of people miss that. So they're constantly going to the pause menu to reset the level to the start. So it'd been nice to get that in there. But yeah, it was just like a little touch. I also did talking about kind of modern design stuff. I did a bunch of accessibility stuff. So if you go to witchandwiz.com/accessibility, I list everything there. But stuff like there's a co-pilot mode. So if you plug in a second controller, both controllers will play the game. So if you're someone with, say, motor function or maybe visual problems with vision, you can play most of the game. But if you need a hand, you don't need to pass the controller back and forth. The other person can kind of like, or if you played games as a kid and you had a brother or sister, like you often hold the controller and pretend you were playing. It's kind of like that, but it actually does something. So that comes from Xbox has that feature just built into the system. And I was like, well, that's really easy to implement on the NES. So I just did that. And then there's a high contrast mode for people with vision problems. So that one, I'm not sure how well it works because I had very, very limited testing. But the idea is it takes away all of the like noise from the graphics. So they change from, say, castle with bricks and leaves and ladders and all that to just kind of square blocks, like solid gray blocks. The idea is if you have some vision but very limited, you might be able to kind of make things out if they're a little bit less varied. Like a white block is always a wall, regardless of kind of where it is. Mm-hmm. That comes from Last of Us, did something like that. Last of Us 2. So anyway, there's a bunch of, like you mentioned, the button hints and stuff.
That's very modern thinking, right? So that's pretty cool. Because you'd never see something like that in a NES game.
Like that. Even those concepts didn't exist, I don't think, really at any kind of commercial level.
It's funny. As an aside, my our buddy Crabman, Justin, my buddy, he's got a son who's got arthrogryposis, right? And which is like a joint. I don't know what you call it. It's like something to do with his joints, where like they're all kind of messed up a little bit. But
so it's painful to do kind of repetitive actions, stuff like that.
Yeah, right. And it's hard for him to do some things. And so when that Xbox controller came out, it was really cool for him. But as he's gotten a little bit older, he's 7 years old now. But as he's gotten a little bit older, he's turned to where he can actually use a controller. And he's figured out how to make a controller work. But the funny thing is, he came over to the house the other day. And he's like, "Hey, Michael, can we play Super Mario Odyssey?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. I've got Mario Odyssey." I was like, "Sure, we can play it." And I handed him the controller, and he was doing all this stuff that like I couldn't even imagine myself doing. It's just funny how time and effort in some cases, if you've got the desire to do it, like of course I've got the desire to do it, but I don't have the dexterity or the twitch. I don't have the young brain like he does. Mm-hmm. But it's just funny. I thought that's funny. But the accessibility thing, that's another thing. Like 2 or 3 years ago, I mean, this would be like exactly what Crabman would have wanted a game like this where he could do something like that. It's like perfect. So you think it's maybe you think of it as like, it's only like a handful of cases where it's going to come in useful, but then somebody where it's going to come in useful, and it's just awesome. So kudos to you for implementing something like that.
Yeah, I was happy to
absolutely
do it. Yeah, another part, like it's a little less kind of maybe traditional accessibility, but the whole intro to the game, which tells the backstory, that's kind of inspired by my daughters, who one of them can't read, and when I started it, the other one couldn't really read very well either. So I wanted to have a game with no dialogue. So we often play games together, like even NES games, and there's just pages and pages of dialogue, and I have to read it to them. So I thought it'd be cool to try and tell the story without any reading, so that anyone could kind of enjoy it and yeah, that's why the whole intro is just told through kind of gameplay and environmental storytelling.
Yeah, I like that.
That's cool.
That's definitely cool. I love the little prologue. I think that was a nice touch.
Thanks.
You kind of don't realize what kind of game you're playing at first. You know.
Yeah, it could be a negative thing, but
it's a good way to tell a little story.
It's a little more. Yeah, it's a little more drawn out than I think I wanted initially. But I don't know. It's hard. Like if you make it too short, it just feels like nothing really happened. You just left your house and suddenly you're getting abducted by a witch. Whereas I wanted to feel like the kids are exploring, going into the woods, just going like a little too far, a Grimm's fairy tale kind of feeling that, they just go a little beyond where they should be. They find an old cabin, stuff like I would have done as a kid, going exploring in the woods and stuff like that, and just seeing what's inside and kind of ending up triggering a series of events that leads to the young boy being abducted by an evil witch.
Yeah. No, I think I didn't think it was too long. I think it's about right.
Yeah, cool.
Your only other option would have been to do like what Lolo did and have like a couple little cut scenes or something.
Yeah.
But the way you've done it, it's interactive, so it's a little bit different. I think it's kind of
I really like. I didn't. I didn't quite land that part as well as I wanted to, but that is something I was hoping to do, was keep it always in control of the player, that you're never just like, okay, time to put the controller down and watch the cutscene. I wanted to always feel that it was in world. I had to take a bit of control away just for the logistics of kind of animating something like that. But for the most part, it's in-game graphics, in-game world. Like Half-Life 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. That does some really, I love the environmental storytelling in that, the parts where you look through a window and see stuff going on. Yeah. I wanted to kind of capture a bit of that as much as I could.
Cool. So what made you think to put I can kind of imagine, but the rewind mechanic, that's something I can't imagine I don't think any NES game has ever did that back in the day. I know modern games have done it since, and I guess Braid is kind of one of the most infamous indie games to have done it, where that's like the mechanic of the game. But I just can't. I don't know. I've never seen it in an NES game, so it's kind of like something that kind of struck me as cool, because you're not just rewinding. You don't just rewind to the beginning of the level. You can rewind individual moves, and you can rewind pretty much as many as you want, I think, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, it's a few hundred, I think. I forget what I ended up with, but it's essentially more than you could reasonably do. I think there's 1 or 2 levels. If you really kind of meander around, you can hit the limit. But in general, the idea is people would never see the limit. So the idea for it is actually just taken directly from Catrap or Pitman, the Game Boy game I mentioned that it's inspired by. So I still don't know how they do it. They do a rewind that I have some ideas on how they do it, but it's quite impressive. They do a full, play everything backwards. So all the animations play backwards, the enemies that were killed kind of animate back onto screen, and the explosion kind of flies into itself. It's really quite cool, especially on the Game Boy. And I can get that. Well, I have some ideas on how I could do it, but it would have required kind of dramatically changing how I programmed the entire kind of movement system in the game, and I didn't really want to do that. So in my game, it just pops through each move. I call it more of an undo, a rewind. It's kind of it's mostly meant to be, I took an extra step and I didn't mean to, and now I'm in a pit and I just want to go back to the top of the pit. That's kind of most of the time that I intend that. That's how I intend it to be used. If you're kind of rewinding much past that, I'd expect you just to reset the level. But the inspiration is just from Catrap, and then once you see it, it's hard to imagine playing games without it. It's so nice to be able to reverse those moves. It's a little weird. It's kind of funny based on what we were talking about with Lolo, where this would have been a lot more useful in the licensed era where you didn't have emulators. Whereas now it's kind of pointless because people can do save states and rewind in an emulator and stuff like that. But whatever.
Yeah, but it's kind of like thinking, even myself when I play, when I play NES games, I tend to try to at least initially play them like they're an NES game, right? So I don't instantly go to save states and that sort of thing. And I usually like on my when I play emulation on like my RetroPie and stuff, I like the retro. I'm sure you've seen it, like the retro achievements community where they've got the achievements that you can earn for the games. Well, they've got a hardcore mode which turns off all the save states and stuff on the emulator. So I usually just use that, which prevents me from being able to save scum and move through the game. Just at least to try it that way first. Now, a game like Lolo, I may end up, change my mind, right? But in general, I try to play it like it's an NES game, which means your game would be perfect because it's built in. I don't have to cheat it, so to speak.
Yeah, and I should say too, like I build these NES games kind of with the focus on the physical version. So I do the digital release for convenience, and I know some people prefer it, but for me, the interesting part is running on real hardware, and like you said, it existing as a kind of standalone thing and not dependent on an emulator doing special stuff. So I'm totally with you too. I try to play everything on a cartridge and try to experience it as it was back then. I even do, like right now I just finished Castlevania and I'm about to start Simon's Quest with my kids. And so I'm like scouring the internet trying to find strategy guides from 89 or 90, whenever it came out, that Nintendo Power issue with it, try and experience it like as it would have been back then. So even if I'm kind of, because I know Simon's Quest is going to be a nightmare if I don't use a guide, but I want to kind of use a guide of the era, like what I actually would have done as a kid. And as I mentioned, we did Metroid like that. Yeah, it's fun. It's cool too. And the Nintendo Power ones are pretty good actually, because I used to hate it when I was a kid because they would always end halfway through the game. Be like, your adventure is just beginning. No, I want to know everything. But now it's kind of nice because that's actually what I want. I want to be pointed in the right direction without step-by-step guide.
Yeah, I like the point me in the right direction. Don't tell me exactly what to do, right? Which that's kind of a modern thing too, I mean, some games have a map that have a dot that you just run to, but some games also just kind of maybe like Metroid. So Metroid, obviously, when you're playing it on the NES, if you play it as intended, you have to sit down and map out, to draw your own maps and stuff, right? So, a simple way to say modernize that game would be the map is just generated in game based on when you go to the room, like a modern Metroid is. So, I mean, just little things like that. But the drawing your own map is another thing too. That's something, talk about doing something with your kids. That's something that could be really fun, which is probably what you guys did.
Yeah, the trouble is kids suck at it. I can't. I'm like, no, stick to the grid. You gotta stick to the grid. What are you doing? That room was not 2 blocks wide.
I bought you this graph paper for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Why are you drawing flowers in the corner? We're supposed to be drawing.
Yeah. Rip it up, throw it in the tray.
Worst kid ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. I can imagine kids are probably they're not the best guide in the world, but it's all about just having fun. So. Yeah. All right. Justin, do you have any thoughts? I've kind of left you in the.
I mean, you guys kind of covered everything. I've enjoyed kind of listening to Matt. You talk about the development of this game. It's been really interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited to get to. So, I obviously, like I said, I only made it to, I guess, the third mechanic, so to speak, the gravity mechanic. I'm excited to get to more. I know, and I've watched a little bit there's a couple people on YouTube that have done some long plays and stuff of the game, and so I was able to kind of look at some of the mechanics. And some of them look pretty interesting. I like the one I'm most intrigued by is I think the one where you get your friend back, the boy, and you can kind of switch between the characters. I'm pretty excited to try that one. Although it looks late in the game, it looks like the last one you get.
Yeah,
but,
it is. Because that's your whole quest. You're rescuing them,
right?
So that's after you finally find him, the final escape from the castle with him. There's, I don't know if I mentioned it too, like one of the design philosophies is that each mechanic is meant to kind of go back to base, like square one. So I mentioned in Lolo, like the difficulty curve, although a little uneven, is essentially like rising the entire time. Whereas with Witch and Wiz, my aim was to have it peaks and valleys all the way through. So when right before you get a new mechanic, you do the hardest puzzle with the previous mechanic. And it should be really difficult, take a long time. And after you finish that, you get a little, once again, kind of in-game cutscene where you get the new mechanic. And then the first few puzzles with the new mechanic are almost brain dead. Like they're really just teaching you the mechanic. They're not meant to be a puzzle per se. And then it kind of slowly builds up again, does that exact same ramp. So like I get overwhelmed with puzzle games myself where you just keep layering and layering and layering. And by the end of the game, I'm just like, I'm not a puzzle game guy. And by the end of it, I'm not having fun anymore. There's just too many things to consider. And as I mentioned, I just feel overwhelmed. So my thought with this was to design it for myself in the sense that it's kind of a different challenge. It's almost like 7 or 8 different small games. Like the mechanics are all kind of twists on the same concept, but I don't like add a new mechanic. I remove the old mechanic and add a new mechanic. So it just keeps switching as you go through. And that's the same all the way to the end. Like when you get to the wizard, there's no longer gravity flipping and there's no longer the edges where you kind of loop around and stuff like that. So, if that appeals to you, like if you're listening to this and that appeals to you and think you might like it, or if you're into Fire and Ice, Lolo, those kind of single screen puzzle games.
You've also got an entire concept, in my opinion, dedicated to Donkey Kong for the Game Boy, where you've got a key that you
one?
can.
Yeah, that's my favorite one. That's it. Yeah, that's a great game. Donkey Kong. What do they call that? Donkey Kong 94.
Yeah, Donkey Kong 94. I think that's what it's being called these days.
Yeah. I had that one as a kid. I loved it. Yeah,
I played it. I played that all the time.
Super Game Boy game too.
Yeah. So that was kind of what I was thinking of when I was watching the key levels.
That one, like Donkey Kong's a lot more like action oriented.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Whereas this one is much more methodical. But yeah, it's cool. Like with a puzzle game like this, like what the key does is it adds an element, something that you can pick up and carry. And kind of like Lolo, you have to carry it to the gate to open the door. And it's a very small thing, but just that small twist like adds a whole new flavor of puzzles that you kind of have to not relearn, but you have to start from scratch and learn new mechanics. So yeah, I think it's fun. I made it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the ramping, the difficulty thing where you ramp up each different concept, because I was actually thinking that just a minute ago, how like when you first get a new mechanic, the very first thing you do is almost nothing. Like I'm thinking back to the one where the levels loop around themselves. I think all you have to do is just loop around one time and there's an enemy, right? It's almost like it's
just go left.
It's almost just like teaching you how to use the mechanic. And so, I like that. I'm with you. I'm not a super technical puzzle guy. I have trouble with puzzles, especially when they layer everything together. So like to imagine somehow you layering all these concepts together into one puzzle. First of all, if I was designing the game, I would probably just jump off the bridge trying to figure out how to do that. But then
the same, man.
Then if you were to figure it out, the poor people trying to play the game, But so I'm glad you didn't do that for my own sanity. not necessarily.
I did have an idea at one point. I was going to do kind of a secret, like B-sides level you would unlock somehow. And that was going to be where I would combine all the mechanics. So kind of like, I don't know if you know, in Super Mario World, they have those, I think like 8 or 10 levels after Star Road, where they're just like really, really challenging levels that are totally optional. Yeah, I was going to do something like that where I would combine all these and just make it ridiculous for those people
that's not a bad
are kind
idea.
of after that. Yeah,
you could combine. Yeah, you could. Well, that's Witch and Whiz too.
Yeah,
Electric Boogaloo. No, you could do. I don't know. You could do. You could just combine 2 or 3 of the mechanics. You don't have to combine all of them either. But yeah. Anyways. You're right. You're right.
Take much.
The game has shipped, so I understand. You may have already done this, but I was sitting here thinking as I think of all these different mechanics, of how it would be cool to do like just hold back some of your most difficult puzzles of each mechanic, and then like right before the boss of the game, something do like a Mega Man style boss gauntlet or something where you had to do like one really difficult puzzle of each mechanic right before you got to the boss or something. Mm. But
I won't spoil the boss fight for you then.
Okay.
Pleasantly surprised.
All right, cool. I will wait until I get there. Maybe a while, but cool. All right. Well, I don't know. I guess we can do graphics and stuff like we do in the other segment. So graphics 8+. I think it's they're great. The colors are super vibrant in this game. I think maybe the most vibrant I've seen on an NES game in a long time. So I don't know how you went about choosing. I know you're limited to how many colors per tile or whatever that you can do, but I don't know how you went about choosing which colors to use. But yeah, great job.
I've been kind of talking about this as if I did it. The art is done by, for the most part, by 2 guys. Kenneth Fedger, I think is how you say his name, and a guy named Alp. So Kenneth did most of the level art, and he basically just, like all the color stuff you're talking about, he basically just did that.
Oh, well, kudos to him.
So,
it's great.
Yeah, he's awesome. He did amazing.
Yeah, and awesome.
And then Alp, he did some level stuff, but he was mostly responsible for the main character and like the mom and the prologue and stuff. Like he was more of the character guy. So, but yeah, both of them, and another guy named Haller Zoltan, who did the graphics for From Below. He did some stuff on Witch and Whiz as well. But
From Below had some good color stuff going on too, if I recall.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it was a little more kind of like, that's tough to get like saturated or desaturated on the NES, but there's a little more kind of realistic vibe to it, whereas this one is very colorful. And if you check out the Kenneth Fedger on Twitter, he does these NES mocks all the time that are just super inspiring, really exciting to see. So if you like that kind of look, he's they basically look like Nintendo of Japan games. I mean, Mario, stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna look him up. Cool. And the music's good. You got a lot of tracks. I don't know, it does kind of loop a little bit, but not in a bad way. You know, like you said, you push it to the back, so it's not in your face annoying. It's just it's there. It's pleasant. I don't mind it. You do allow I like how you can go in the option menu and you can turn off the music but leave on the sound, that sort of thing. That's a smart move.
Yeah.
Yeah, the music's by a guy named Tui. I think it's a bird.
He the same one that did the From Below?
Yeah, exactly. He did the music for From Below, so
it kind of has a similar feel.
Yeah. So yeah, he did all the music and sound effects for this game.
Very good. Excellent as always. Tui. T-U-I? T-U?
Yeah, but it's like an I with 2 dots or something.
Oh, it's got the fancy.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So, Justin, it's probably not on price charting yet because it just got released, but
it is on eBay.
It is. Oh, that's okay. Well, you're selling it on eBay, right?
No, it's someone selling it.
Somebody's already
Or
selling it, man.
selling the pre-order. 180
Oh, wow.
it's going for.
Oh, wow. What was the pre-order?
Oh, sorry. That's Canadian. That's Canadian. 140. 140 is the US price.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know. No offense, Matt. I don't know that I would pay that for it.
It originally went for I think it was 60 for the standard and then 90 for the special edition. $10 for the digital. Come on, guys.
$10.
Yeah,
without a doubt. That's everybody go buy
now
it.
we're talking.
Everybody needs to go buy it for $10.
And it's free. You can go to piepacker.com.
Don't tell people that.
Oh, I get paid. It's all right.
Okay.
You can go to piepacker.com. And if you're just kind of curious, your Witch was curious, just go check it out. It's for free. You can play it right in your browser. No download, nothing.
Oh, wow. That's
pretty cool website too. If you haven't checked it out before, they're kind of trying to be like the Netflix.
Really
Netflix of retro gaming.
I need to try that out then. I haven't actually heard that.
Or like Spotify is maybe a better analogy since it's free.
I see. Yeah. Okay. That's neat. I don't know. $60, and it's too late now because the pre-orders are gone. Since we missed our window to release this episode, but yeah, I mean, for this game plus the I'm assuming it comes with a box and a little manual and everything. I would probably pay that for this game.
Yeah, I think I would.
There's no way.
I can say it now because I can't get it right.
Yeah. Or I'm going to be like, oh, I'm glad you said that. I got a couple copies sitting right here.
Saved a couple just for you too.
Honestly, if you do, holler at me. I mean, I might actually pick this one up. But no, this game, I'm all on board. The $10, go. I know you can play it on Packer or whatever. I guess there's ad money coming in from somewhere in there, but do that. But also, if you need to put it on everybody needs to get this, put it on your emulator of choice and play it because this game's. It's sweet. So go to Itch.
Yeah, that's kind of
go to Itch and
that's how I look
pay
at
the
it.
$10.
Yeah, you can I kind of think of Piepacker as probably a demo for a lot of people or like people who aren't into NES games at all. Check it out there. But if you have an EverDrive or anything, you're gonna want the ROM. So
yeah. So go to Itch.
Big bucks.
Yeah. That's probably actually if we're I don't know how much it costs to do this limited run packaging, but you probably make more money off the itch.io stuff than you do the physical copy.
No, not even close.
Oh, really?
I mean, I guess per copy maybe. Actually, no, I don't even think. No, well, like the limited run stuff just has such a huge audience.
Yeah, that's true.
Compared to Itch, where I'm just small fish in a big pond.
Yeah, you're probably right. But yeah, no, limited runs where it's at. That's cool. I need to pay more attention to what's happening in the world. I'm too locked in my house, thinking of other things. I always miss the window for all these cool things. But it's probably better on my wallet that I miss it. So
yeah.
But cool, yeah. I say everybody go get it. Go get you a copy of this game, or you can send us a message with Matt's Game of the Year 2021. And you may actually get a copy directly from us. All right. I had something else just a second ago, I was thinking of something really interesting that I had to say, and it's totally left my brain. So could be because it's 12:30 at night where I'm at.
Right.
Yeah. So again, I know. I had a really good analogy. Sorry. I'm going back up one more time. Use Spotify. So I'm thinking about this Packer service versus itch.io versus the limited run game physical copy. So if you're thinking about music, it's kind of like the Packers, like Spotify. Itch is kind of like maybe buying the CD, and then the limited run games is like the vinyl, right? Everybody wants the vinyl on their shelf.
Yeah.
So that's what
good. I'm glad we went back for that analogy.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Really buttoned it up nicely.
Totally worth it, right? Yeah.
Now they get it. Oh, I know.
Yeah, that's right. It's the vinyl. Come on. You want the vinyl copy of Witch and Wiz, everybody.
Yeah.
All right. I think we can kind of start wrapping it up here. Any parting words, Matt? Anything you want to get off your chest?
No, just thanks for having me. Glad we finally got to record it. And I really appreciate you checking out the game and spread the word.
Yeah.
Great.
Gladly. I'm glad you popped it into my zeitgeist here, because I was definitely slacking on keeping up with my NES releases. And this is definitely one that's going to occupy some of my free time. So I'm glad to have it. Let us know. Don't let us forget about your next game whenever you get it. I'm sure it's probably years away, but keep us in the loop. You're probably already working on it. If I had to think, if I think I know you.
I'm actually working on a Game Boy port of From Below right now.
That's nice. That'll be.
Yeah.
That's the perfect place for it. So.
Everybody Analog Pocket money.
Yeah, you should have had it ready for the Analog Pocket release.
I know. I'm kicking myself. Yeah.
I'm definitely eyeing that Analog Pocket. That looks so good. It looks so nice. Impossible to get, I'm sure. But
you're gonna be paying.
Yeah. Oh well. It is what it is. All right. Cool. Well, we'll have you on again soon. I hope, Matt. Not only are you a superb NES dev, but you're a good guest. So we'll have you on. Try to have you on again.
You're a good host.
Thank you, Justin. You're a sack of taters.
That's right.
Just kidding. All right. Well, y'all know where to find us. I'm not gonna spin our wheels here at the end. Yeah. Oh, wait, no. You guys, you almost let me forget. Rob and Ryan are going to get in so much trouble if we let this slide. Hold on. All right, this is from Rob and Ryan. If you recall on our Vice Project Doom episode, they had a book. Q is for quarantine, N is for Nintendo. And they came on and we talked about that book, and they were talking about how awesome the art was in the book and stuff. Well, anyways, here's a message from those guys.
Hello, listeners of Two Dudes and a NES. This is Robert Peters. In the last episode, Mike and Justin were kind enough to have me and my buddy Ryan on to discuss Vice Project Doom and to promote our book, Q is for Quarantine, N is for Nintendo. It's a great episode, and you should definitely check it out if you haven't already. While discussing the book, which is available in both the Amazon Kindle store and as a print on demand, we forgot to mention one of the things that makes the book as fun as it is, which is the artwork. This is especially important for me to mention since the artists responsible for all of the awesome pixel art are my wife, Judy Wren, and my brother-in-law, Philip Wren. They did a great job, and they're also doing a great job on the art for the soon-to-be-released sequel, V is for Vaccine, S is for Super Nintendo. Many thanks again to Mike and Justin for letting me set things right regarding the omission. It'll be nice not to have to sleep on the couch anymore. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
There you go. Do either of you guys have the sinking sensation that he was held at knife point while standing at it? Yeah.
Under duress, for sure.
He definitely seemed a little under duress. But anyways, hopefully, if his wife makes it to the end of this episode, which my guess is she didn't, maybe she'll hear it, and he'll be redeemed. But there you go. So shout out to those guys. That book's good. It's a good one if you're like one of those type of people that has a bookshelf next to their potty. Then it's good. It's a good one to have. All right. Anyways, I feel better now. I didn't leave them hanging. We do have a voicemail. We'll save it for next episode. So that's it. Thanks again, Matt. We'll.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Talk to you soon, and listener, we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.